Hello, and welcome to the $1 Trillion Opportunity. I'm Shannon Austin.
And I'm Johan Bosini.
And this is our inaugural episode.
That's right, it is.
In this show, we'll be going around the globe to explore the emerging markets Quona understands on a deep level. But for this first episode, let's start close to home.
We'll get to know Quona. How did Quona identify and pursue the $1 trillion opportunity in emerging markets?
Apple's new iPhone, a lot of hype, a lot of buzz.
We think 1 million phones flying out the door that first weekend.
A brand new iPhone
doesn't have any buttons, just a touch screen.
Of course, lots of talk about how it works with the touch screen.
Could change the way you live.
And it changed the world forever.
It all started with a curious new innovation called the iPhone. Heard of that one?
The release of the smartphone started a revolution that hasn't stopped since. One that has dramatically changed all aspects of our daily lives, including financial services.
Hi, I'm Brand Engel, managing partner and co-founder of Quona Capital.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Whittle, co-founder and managing partner of Quona Capital.
I'm Ganesh Rengaswamy, co-founder and managing partner of Quona Capital.
We pulled in Quona's 3 co-founders to tell the story of building the plane as they were flying it. Here's Monica again.
Steve Jobs launched the iPhone in 2007, and we just saw this opportunity where technology could be applied to microfinance to totally change the physics of that business. It could make it more affordable. It could let you reach clients you weren't able to do sustainably before. And you could develop new products that, again, really weren't possible in the old paper and people-intensive way. For me, it starts with the 3 of us. Jonathan was part of 3 venture-backed tech startups. Ganesh was also working in both microfinance and tech.
Monica used to be at Accion and I used to be at Unitas back in 2009-10 probably. Both these organizations, they've been in the same building and then we kept running into each other. Jonathan, I met after Jonathan had joined hands with Monica at Quona. We all met in Bangalore. And maybe that was, Jonathan, your first trip to India, probably?
It was my first trip to India. Yeah, the chemistry was great. Just really enjoyed the company.
When we met at a restaurant, we were there for probably over 3 hours. We started with lunch and ended at dinner.
Never will forget that.
We maybe all had a great conversation at lunch or dinner where we dreamed up a business idea. But how does this turn into a global investment firm?
At the time, Monica was working at the Accion investment fund, and Accion made a few investments in microfinance in Latin America, which essentially make affordable loans to very small businesses. Then one of those investments, Compartamos, went public and did really, really well, creating the opportunity for some deep thinking on what Accion was going to do with all the money, while still being consistent with their mission.
So I was working with Accion and living in Mexico and sitting on the board of Compartamos when the IPO happened. Compartamos, a microfinance institution, one of the largest in Latin America. M-Pesa had been launched in 2007, same year that Compartamos had its IPO. So a great example of technology applied to financial services in Africa that totally changed the landscape forever in that country.
So Accion gets this windfall of cash from an incredible investment in emerging markets, and the world noticed.
Compartamos generated hundreds of millions of dollars of return to Accion, and actually a lot of scrutiny. We were on the front page of the New York Times saying, how could you make so much money and help the poor? At Economies, we actually challenged up front and said, we think we can, and we think we can do better. So we had this capital and we had this mandate saying, we really need to serve and improve financial services for the unbanked. At the time, some of the resources, we lobbied to have 1/3 of those resources be dedicated to a new fund called Frontier Investments. And that fund made technology-enabled fintech investments for innovative companies in Latin America, Asia, and Africa. Those companies, that portfolio, I was presenting on it in a forum where JP Morgan and TIA, the Teachers Pension Fund, heard us speak and said, we want to be part of this. We believe in financial inclusion. We believe in the no trade-off performance and purpose mandate. And we think we can do more than we're doing with just microfinance by adding fintech.
So Monica, Jonathan, and Ganesh got together and spun this fund off into an independent third-party fund, Quona Capital.
We started with each taking a specific geography, but also bringing together this new type of capital. These mainstream marquee investors, they were new to emerging markets. And so this idea of being fiduciaries and balancing experimentation and innovation with prudential management. And I think that's a line we've walked really well together.
How did you know there was a serious business opportunity? What were you seeing in these founders and in these early companies that you guys invested in that made you so excited beyond just driving change in these markets, that these were also potentially really profitable businesses?
Sure. There was a confluence of factors, right? So we talked about the technology factors that were unimaginable just a few years before the advent of the smartphone. Second, though, in most of the other markets that we invest in, the venture ecosystem really had begun to develop just a few years before. Third, we saw regulators beginning to embrace this idea that financial technology could be a means of promoting financial inclusion and bringing competition to a banking sector that across emerging markets has been hugely concentrated. Typically 4 to 5 banks have controlled 80 to 90% of banking assets. And we saw regulators around the globe beginning to open up space for new entrants, starting with India. And that was a significant driver of this opportunity. And then finally, I would say we've just met a series of entrepreneurs who were dreaming big. It was a perfect storm, if you will. We've been able to now prove that moving into our fourth fund, that appetite was there, but was looking for a platform like Quona that could really deliver both financial return and social impact.
So what would you each say is sort of, it's almost like for a VC firm, the moment of product market fit? What was the aha moment when you realized that Quona could really make a difference?
I think early on, it just look at the LPs that joined on. For me, that was a huge validation. I mean, we didn't just have JP Morgan and TIA. We had Credit Suisse, we had MasterCard, Goldman Sachs. I mean, we had the most marquee investors backing a new team.
I had no doubt that there was a huge opportunity for financial technology to transform financial services in emerging markets. I've been part of a startup that had brought banking services to underserved, unbanked Brazilians. And I could see that the opportunity there for technology to transform the way financial products were designed and delivered was tremendous. But the aha moment was really speaking to LPs and realizing that indeed LPs were looking for a platform that could deliver both top-tier financial return and authentic social impact. And what we built then was a firm that has brought very best practices of making investments in order to drive financial returns with an investment process that focuses on companies that are expanding access to financial services to underserved consumers and small businesses.
One of the things that brought it home for me was when founders and ecosystem recognized that what we do is kind of nuanced. So actually being able to engage with founders who are obviously driven by a meaningful outcome from a financial perspective, but also to help them understand. By being able to make have far-reaching impact, they can also make a meaningful financial return, and to be able to best attract high-quality founders to our platform. It's probably a signal which we have seen over time getting amplified.
We're a truly global firm with a single strategy, one fund, one team. That was very much building it as we flew the plane, right? Figuring out how to really coordinate across Asia, Latin America, Africa, how to make investment decisions together, really bringing all of the benefits of the perspective that we had about what was going around the globe in financial technology to build a different kind of firm.
One of my more calming moments was the first road trip. I think I was with Jonathan. We were in Europe and we had just started talking to LPs. And I remember he had rented a car, but he tied it to his iPhone playlist. And I'm like, I loved his taste in music. I'm like, okay, we're going to be okay, because he had a really awesome playlist. So it's sort of these interesting signs that we might have different approaches, but kind of we share the same vision.
I think we should share Jonathan's original playlist in our show notes for listeners to enjoy. And that's all for this episode of The $1 Trillion Opportunity. Join us next time for part 2 of this conversation.
Follow The $1 Trillion Opportunity on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or whatever you listen to podcasts on.
The $1 Trillion Opportunity is produced by Quona and Pod People. Our producers are Danielle Roth, Hannah Pedersen, and Sam Gebauer. David DeLuca edits the show. Special thanks to Rachel King and Amy Machado.
We'll see you next week.